This is a very important interview because he is a senior member of the National Rifle Association board. And with him on the board, they've gotten more hardcore in the defense of the Second Amendment, and we've been pleased with that direction by the NRA. LibertyGuard.org is the big group he's heading up, fighting the drones, the TSA, the police state takeover. But he wants today, Bob Barr, former congressman, constitutional lawyer, Georgetown, multiple degrees, also was in the CIA from 71 to 78. Just a long bio there at bobbarr.org as well. And he joins us here today to obviously talk about the tragic events at Sandy Hook. But also I have the new FBI crime statistics that crime continues to plunge nationwide. The media does not want to pick that up. Guys, that's in yesterday's stack. Will you pull me those crime statistics or pull them up? The violent crime statistic just keeps dropping for 20 years, but the last 5 accelerating. So the gun culture's growing. The system's panicking. This is the empire striking back, canceling all the big hit shows on TV, Discovery Channel. The gun culture's been taking over, the true gun culture, not the one they're projecting. And so the former congressman joins us because everybody wants to know what's going to be in the press conference tomorrow with the NRA. And so, Congressman, what can you tell us about your take on the tragedy in Connecticut and what the NRA is planning to do?
First of all, Alex, thank you very much for allowing me some time to share with you, and even more important, your many, many listeners, all of whom care deeply about this country, our Constitution, the rule of law, and certainly share with me the tremendous feeling of grief and anger about what happened to those kids and the adults in Sandy Hook Elementary less than a week ago. I mean, these sorts of things are terrible tragedies, and the first thing we need to do is what I'm sure the families want to do, and that is to grieve among themselves and to take those steps to properly remember those who were killed, and not do what others have done, namely Mayor Bloomberg and a number of folks in the Congress and elsewhere, and immediately take to the bully pulpit and make a political issue out of this. But they have done that, and we know it's going to continue. We know that there will be, as there already have been, legislative vehicles introduced in the House and the Senate, and probably some state legislatures, to attack the instrumentality of evil and not the evil itself, the evil that was in the mind of this perpetrator, Lanza. And we've seen almost identically in other cases, recent mass shootings that we've seen. And yet we continue as a society, by and large, to focus simply on the instrumentality. None of the laws that are on the books obviously prevented this madman from doing what he did, and no laws that could be placed on the books could prevent this sort of madness. People, if they want to do something like this, are going to steal a weapon, steal a firearm, steal a knife, whatever it is, get one by hook or crook. And what we need to be doing is identifying with the degree that we can, with respect for our Constitution, these people. There are danger signs in virtually all of these cases, including this most recent one, that should have been heeded, common sense approaches that should have been taken by his mother, by colleagues, other family members, school officials, and so forth. So there's much to be learned here, much to be done. We are seeing far too many of these mass shootings in recent decades, even as you just indicated, Alex, violent crime, including crime with firearms, is down dramatically. And this is at the same time as over the last 3 decades, concealed carry laws have provided for much expanded concealed carry. 41 states now have shall carry permits, laws on the books. Americans do properly understand and are able to arm themselves in self-defense and for other purposes. So as gun ownership by private individuals has increased, crime has gone down dramatically, but mass shootings have increased dramatically. So there's something deep deeply wrong here. It has nothing to do with firearms. And if we as a society continue to allow our public officials to focus on the easy target, and that is the firearm, then more time will go by when we do not deal with the root cause of this terrible problem.
Well, you're obviously a well-read, well-traveled gentleman, but I want to get your take on this. I could say expert opinion, NRA board member, you name it. But I've studied this problem. And in the 60s, mass shootings like this were unheard of. There was a bombing back in the 30s in Michigan that killed 30-plus children. But bombs were outlawed then. Somebody blew some folks up. It's a famous bombing. In fact, we can probably pull that up on the encyclopedia for people that are watching on TV. But for radio listeners, I'll pull that up after the congressman leaves and cover that. I've been meaning to. But digressing, looking at this, sir, we know what the big ingredient is. The Pentagon developed first-person shooter games to create instinctive killing because in Vietnam and before they found troops wouldn't kill people up close and they would become dead. It was meant to hone not a killer instinct, but an instinctive killing. You have that. All these guys, it turns out, are first-person shooter fans. Then you add psychotropic drugs and mental illness, and they get an obsession with it, and then they go out and kill people. And as you said, this had some of the most draconian gun laws in the country. He tried to buy the guns 4 or 5 times in the month. He'd been refused. And, I mean, can we stop a crazy person from hitting a cop on the head with a hammer and then taking their assault rifle out of the back of their vehicle and going and killing people? I mean, the media is engaged in an all-out stampede to get our guns. Isn't it time, the studies are there, sir, for the NRA and others to point at the real culprits so that we're not scapegoated? Isn't it time to go after Big Pharma with the New Freedom Initiative, trying to put half of American school children on psychotropics that on their own inserts admit they cause psychotic breaks and suicide and mass murder?
That's actually a very good point, your very last one there, that has often been overlooked, and that is the prevalence of drugs for children, both of teenage years and even in elementary and middle school. And, you know, it's not just a problem that we face, Alex, with regard to mind-altering drugs, illicit drugs, illegal drugs. These are drugs that children are weaned into by their parents, by their doctors, by the schools that are looking to keep children submissive, under control. And what we're doing is we're developing generations now. This has been going on really for a couple of generations of children and young adults who are addicted in one way or another to drugs, who have not, because they are on these drugs in their formative years, do not develop the social skills, for example, that you need to operate nonviolently in society. And then we, this guy Lanza was on drugs. And another area that we need to look at is, why aren't these people being institutionalized? Why aren't they getting the help that they need, and society getting the help that it needs to keep these people off the street from harming individuals? This is not just a federal issue. States need to be tackling this as well. This character in Connecticut, apparently his mother, God rest her soul, was attempting to get him into a mental institution, but because it's so difficult to do this, it's so time-consuming, she wasn't able to, and this apparently made him angrier than he already was. And of course, apparently she kept firearms around the house. Probably not a wise idea.
Yeah, not a good move.
Like
and so because she made bad decisions, and nobody's blaming her, she's dead. The point is, I've got to lose my rights. I mean, I got to be honest, and God forbid, if I had a son that looked and acted like that, the photos are chilling. Believe me, the guns would be locked up under a giant safe. And she reported, I mean, but again, she makes bad decisions. Now we lose our rights when they have some of the most draconian gun control laws. Sir, what is the plan of attack to defend the Second Amendment by the NRA? Can you give us any foreshadowing on the press conference tomorrow?
I can't do that because we have not been, as board members, we have not been briefed yet. I wish I could, but I know absolutely nothing about what they're planning. I, of course, can't speak for the NRA, but I do know that as in past tragedies like this involving firearms, it's very, very important for NRA members to be openly supportive of the NRA and other firearms organizations, whether it's Gun Owners of America, the Second Amendment Foundation. We have GeorgiaCarry.com here in Georgia. I think it's very important for the citizens to be actively supportive of these organizations, both financially and vocally through letters to editors and calls to shows like yours and so forth, to encourage these organizations to contact and remain in contact with legislators, not just at the state level, but particularly at the federal level, to make sure that these legislators who will be voting perhaps on legislation like Schumer will likely introduce or support, Feinstein, McCarthy up in the House in New York, Peter King, and so forth. We know what they're going to be doing, and what we need to do is we need to arm those members and senators who understand the Second Amendment, who understand that the real problem is not the gun but the perpetrator. We need to let them know that we, the people, support them and will support them if they stand up to this. What we cannot allow ourselves to be is silent, so the only voice that they hear is the voice of unreason coming from people like Mike Bloomberg.
I agree, and if I was the head of the NRA giving the press conference tomorrow, I would come out and say it's terrible what happened, but I would say it is, even more terrible potentially if we let the crime rates explode again like we've had under victim disarmament in this country. And then I would go over the statistics that violent crime has gone down everywhere where you have concealed carry, bringing down the total numbers nationwide. I would bring down Chicago and New York with restrictive gun laws having some of the highest rates. And I would bring up the fact that it's time to follow the Texas model and have the sheriff train and deputize the principals and teachers, because
Absolutely.
we have the... can you speak to that, sir?
Absolutely, and as a matter of fact, we'll probably, at the organization that I'm involved with, Liberty Guard, libertyguard.org, we're readying an initiative to get out there and proactively support what Texas is doing, and that is to arm and provide proper training for being armed for teachers and school administrators, so that anybody who might be contemplating this sort of thing will know that, or even if they don't contemplate, they may be killed if they try and do this sort of thing at another school that happened at Sandy Hook, that the administrators and at least some of the teachers will have the means constitutionally guaranteed to defend themselves and the students at these schools. So that's an excellent idea, and one that we are actively pushing at Liberty Guard.
Well, we've got to get on the offensive, because people can say, oh, these liberals are idiots. That's why they want our guns. They don't understand more guns, less crime, as major university studies have shown, as the FBI's own numbers show. England bans all the guns. Their crime rate more than doubles. I went over all those statistics. Lowest crime rate in the world. Switzerland, where you've got to own military weapons by law.
That's right.
They've got bunkers everywhere for the citizens, with hand grenades and rocket launchers in them. Beyond that, and you never see it. It's insane what we're facing. In the 7 or 8 minutes we've got left here, former Congressman Bob Barr is our guest. Reuters and Bloomberg, not just Bloomberg Demand, but his publications, are saying in a Reuters article yesterday that, oh, the president under law can just sign an executive order or have the ATF ban guns under rules. Well, as a constitutional lawyer, I know that just because Reuters says under law, and by the way, they don't give a citation, Obama can do this. Are you concerned that they're trying to mainline the idea that, well, if Congress doesn't act, Obama will? And in all his speeches, he says, we can't let this happen one more time, so that obviously as it happens more, as more Prozac heads blow their top in victim disarmament zones, they're going to have executive orders. A, what's your concern there? What's its constitutional standing? B, and what should we do if he tries to have orders, as the ATF did last year, trying to ban shotguns?
I worry about that a great deal, Alex. I don't think it's just some sort of weird hypothetical that you've raised. We know that this administration believes deeply that it can do whatever it wants. That is, in other words, we have a president who believes that if he believes it's in the best interest of the country, he can do it. He has an obligation to do it, whether the law, whether Congress has passed legislation that's been signed that authorizes him to do it or not. We know that there also are members of Congress who support this notion. They say, well, this is a national emergency, and just like Abraham Lincoln ignored the Constitution when he was faced with a national emergency in 1861 and 1862, so can a president now, if they're faced with a national emergency, do what needs to be done to solve the problem, whether it is an economic situation or something to do with firearms. And even though a president cannot lawfully or constitutionally do what you've indicated, there certainly are executive orders that can and likely will be issued that will have that net effect. It may not do it directly, but there could be executive orders that move ATF, for example, in certain directions to start doing certain things that might have the net effect of putting firearms retailers even temporarily out of business. I think we're already seeing some of that pressure on some of the firearms retailers.
No, that's right, including a story we broke last year that started in Texas. Remember when the ATF just ordered 4 states to not sell, above 2 firearms to somebody? And it wasn't a law. They just said, oh, we just order you to. Yeah.
And we're seeing, I think there were 2 or 3 large retailers, not exclusively firearms, but retailers that sell firearms that are saying, well, we're not going to.
Because of liability, Dick's.
And, there are some reports that I've seen that this is at least partially the result of pressure from the government.
Absolutely. That's what the big... Well, look at the American Freedom, the biggest manufacturer of guns in this country. Some of the only industries we've got left, 6 factories. They're not even talking about just selling it off now. They're talking about maybe just getting rid of it.
I saw that. Cerberus, the holding company.
So this is I see them trying to create a coordinated panic. And as you said, then say, well, we've got the executive orders. What about this report? It's at Infowars.com. It links to the Chinese People's Daily, the official government Communist Chinese mouth. It's the mouth. Communist Chinese government calls for Americans to be disarmed. This just broke at Infowars.com with the links to the People's Daily. And they say they challenge Obama to ratify the new UN treaty. And isn't part of what we're seeing, the drumbeat even before this sad massacre, the move towards getting the Senate to ratify the United Nations Small Arms Treaty, sir?
Actually, Alex, this is one reason I like to come onto your show, because you bring up so many good points that a lot of people don't readily think of. And the UN treaty, the Arms Trade Treaty, AT&T, which is being pushed by the UK, Japan, Netherlands, a number of other nations, Mexico, Brazil, all of our supposed allies, would in fact, if ratified, and it's this administration, the Obama administration, in a 180-degree turn from the Bush administration, has said it supports an AT&T. They haven't said exactly what they would support, but they support the process. So the process has been moving forward. It will continue to move forward, and it is part and parcel of the same anti-firearms initiative that we're seeing in this country, with a sort of an international imprimatur on top of it.
Well, my issue is, of course, as a historian and a constitutional lawyer, you know the Admiral Yamamoto quote about it will be impossible to invade the mainland. And, of course, he told the military high command this and the emperor, and he later made the statement publicly, but it came out during the trials with the occupation force there in Japan with MacArthur, that he said it would have been impossible to invade the United States because behind every blade of grass there would have been a rifle and a person that knew how to use it. It's the full quote. We have the communist Chinese with 6,000 front companies taking over most of the Caribbean ports. They've got Long Beach, all of it. They've had submarines launching missiles off our coast. The Pentagon says it's the next big main threat, not Russia. And they're telling us, you better take your people's guns. This is a foreign military power that wants to disarm the Second Amendment, which was put there to defend the Republic. Is this not meddling in our affairs? And anyone that gives them succor or supports them is a traitor.
It's like something out of Bizarro world, Alex. I mean, here we have a communist dictatorship, which over the course of the last half century or so has murdered millions of its own citizens, that has disarmed its own citizens, that continues to enforce policies such as forced abortions. We have this government with a straight face, apparently, telling us that we need to disarm our citizenry. I mean, it's almost surreal in its bizarreness. And, of course, for any American president to not call this for what it is, and that is a brazen, outrageous, and idiotic attempt to meddle in our affairs by a non-free country like communist China, is what's truly amazing. I mean, that the administration doesn't come out and immediately as a president. And I'd like to see the Congress, leaders in the Congress, do the same thing, call this what it is.
I agree. It's bad enough to have Piers Morgan telling us turn our guns in. I mean, what is it with all these foreigners telling us what to do? This is globalism. But you know what Mao said, Congressman? Political power grows out of a barrel of a gun, so they understand they don't want us to have political power. LibertyGuard.org. I want to get you back in the new year to track this more and to also talk about your initiatives on drones and the TSA, sir.
Let's make that one of our New Year's resolutions, Alex.
All right, former Congressman Bob Barr, LibertyGuard.org. Thank you so much for what you're doing for the Second Amendment.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, there he goes. Have a great Christmas.
Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.